Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video I wanted to have an honest discussion about Charlie Kirk and why some people have chosen to celebrate his death. You know, the type of discussion that has absolutely no possibility of backfiring whatsoever. Before we begin though, there is something I would like to clarify. At no point during this video do I intend on creating an excuse for gun violence, nor do I seek to defend the gunman. This was a devastating attack that left thousands of people traumatized and stretched the boundaries of the political divide far beyond its limit. The circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk's death are horrifying and a grim reminder of the direction this nation is headed. We can honestly acknowledge all of this without glorifying a fascist or demanding compassion for his death. As always, you are welcome to share your own opinion in the comments section below. I know some of you are already typing. I only ask that you take the time out of your day to watch the entire video before you finish your thoughts. This is going to be a difficult discussion with a lot of nuances, so I would appreciate it if you paid close attention to everything I have to say. My goal is to leave as little room for misinterpretation as possible, and that's going to be difficult when people are looking for reasons to disagree. There is unfortunately a chance this video gets taken down, and if that happens, I'll be devastated because this took a lot of effort. But any and all support is appreciated regardless.
Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
Charlie Kirk was one of the largest conservative influencers in the world and the founder of Turning Point USA. He spent his life perpetuating stereotypes, dealing irreparable damage to the civil rights movement, and standing in the way of gun reform. He defended the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He spread misinformation and conspiracies that completely eroded the minds of his followers. He had a massive influence over American politics for the better part of his career, but spent it setting the nation back. That is the legacy Charlie Kirk left behind. We need to recognize that his death, no matter how horrifying, did absolutely nothing to redeem all of the terrible shit he did in life. I think Holy Kool-Aid said it very well, and if you haven't seen his video already, I strongly encourage you to do so now.
He helped roll back LGBT rights, voting rights, immigration rights, and for the first time in history, our daughters will have fewer rights than their grandmothers. In his short life, Charlie Kirk managed to do more damage and more harm than almost any other American in the last 50 years.
One of the biggest tragedies surrounding the death of Charlie Kirk is the opportunity this has given people to rewrite the narrative about his life. They spent years justifying violence against people of color and members of the LGBTQ, and now they decide to eulogize him, calling for unity under his idolization. Those same people immediately made a push to turn Charlie Kirk into a martyr by denying anyone the right to speak about him honestly and demanding empathy with the threat of being silenced. Anyone who celebrates his death is told they're part of the problem, and people who weren't already familiar with his platform are being told Charlie Kirk was a hero. That couldn't be further from the truth. We can't separate Charlie Kirk's death from the system he spent his life promoting. A system that put weapons in the hands of people who weren't fit to have them. A system that affects minority groups disproportionately. A system that made schools unsafe for children. That very system allowed this to happen. Charlie Kirk said this was the price we should all be willing to pay for gun ownership because he never thought he'd pick up the tab.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
Charlie Kirk and his supporters spent the past decade making this kind of violence possible. They voted to let it continue dozens of times, racking up the tally of shootings in America by the hundreds and the bodies by the thousands. When it directly resulted in numerous deaths, they'd refuse to show empathy to the victims or acknowledge their part in their suffering at all. Charlie Kirk was in the position where he could have used his platform to stop this kind of violence from happening. He could have encouraged his supporters to stop standing in the way of gun reform. Instead, he continued, even until his final words were wasted spreading the same garbage rhetoric he had for years. The good guys with guns that their rhetoric relied on only got in the way of law enforcement and escalated tensions further, leading to false arrests. The people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk have spent the past 2 decades trying to prevent these tragedies from happening. They have voted to stop this over and over and over again as they watched their own friends and family members who died to gun violence get slandered online by Charlie Kirk and his supporters. They are the last group of people you could possibly condemn for his death, and they have a right to react however they want. I am not celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, but I support anybody who does. We have a lot of empathy, but mine is currently occupied with families in Gaza, with immigrants who have been detained and thrown in cages, with children who have been shot in school. Actual victims who stood no chance of preventing their current situation because people like Charlie Kirk wanted to see this violence continue. He couldn't empathize with any of those people. Not women or children, not people of color or members of the LGBTQ, not immigrants or people with disabilities. All groups of people his platform affected disproportionately. Charlie Kirk, by his own admission, did not believe in empathy. He spent the past 15 years of his life neglecting to show an ounce of compassion for anyone who wasn't straight and white. His rhetoric was divisive, and it led to an exponential rise in violent crime across the nation. By failing to recognize any of this in the wake of his death, we risk allowing him to be idolized in memory. I found coverage of this situation from content creators like Moist Critical to be incredibly tone-deaf and disappointing for this reason. It's easy for a cishet white person to sit on camera and condemn this behavior when nothing Charlie Kirk ever said stood a chance of affecting them.
So let me be crystal clear here. I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk, everything that happened here is fucking horrible. I think it is horrific. Awful. I think it is terrible. And I'm aware that some people have been celebrating this. I find that to be fucking disgusting.
Nowhere in this entire video did he mention that Charlie Kirk was an ableist, a racist, a homophobe, or a misogynist. He even acknowledges he wasn't really familiar with Charlie Kirk. Jinkies! I wonder how this pasty-ass white dude was able to go years ignoring everything Charlie Kirk did. Dean Withers went on live to spread misinformation that Charlie Kirk's own wife and children were there and witnessed what happened as he broke down in tears.
His wife and children were in attendance, dude. Imagine, imagine being a 12-year-old, watching your dad fucking die. I kind of want you guys to see this. I want you to see how I feel, because there's so many people in here right now. And I want to, if I can, set the tone for what the public's response to this is. Gun violence is sad. Gun violence is life-altering, not just for the victim, but for their family, their friends, their loved ones, everyone that they care about. And if you want to claim to care about ending gun violence, then you can never celebrate it.
Thankfully, his family wasn't even in Utah at the time, but this rumor gave conservatives a perfect opportunity to rewrite the narrative and farm guilt and empathy in the days following Charlie Kirk's death. Even the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known Epstein client, called Charlie Kirk legendary, going on to say he was quote-unquote loved and admired by all. The people celebrating right now are not celebrating gun violence. They are celebrating the death of a fascist, the same way people did back in 1945. According to Hank Green, though, people are celebrating for social media attention. To be fair, I stand to gain a lot of attention by posting this video, but I could also lose any chance I had of starting a YouTube career. I could lose my channel. I could lose my anonymity as a content creator and end up like our dear old Kirk. At the very least, I have butchered any opportunity I had of collaborating with some of my favorite content creators in the future. Those are not risks I take lightly because I fucking love this job. The issue is I was bound to lose something at the hands of Charlie Kirk if he was ever given the opportunity to take something away. These content creators are choosing to speak about this, but they can't do so honestly because they were never in the position to lose anything. Even if Charlie Kirk got everything he wanted, they had the privilege of living no differently than they do now. As a transgender woman, that isn't true for me. If the roles had been reversed, what do you think Charlie Kirk would have said about me? What do you think his supporters would have said about me? More importantly, what do you think they would have said about you? There is an argument to be made that this video only serves to divide the nation further. That by choosing to celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, we risk diminishing the standards we set for others to show empathy. That my arguments could be twisted to sound like I am justifying gun violence or encouraging the cycle to continue. I am not, but I am justifying a lack of empathy for Charlie Kirk. I believe that by choosing to take this time and mourn the loss of a fascist, we are giving people the opportunity to turn him into a martyr. Millions of people who weren't already familiar with Charlie Kirk or his rhetoric are now being told that he was an American hero, and only a handful of people have the guts to say any differently. These people who are choosing to use their platform to condemn those celebrating death before they care to address the absolutely awful impact that person's life had on our nation are choosing to let Charlie Kirk be glorified by his supporters. America needs to know Charlie Kirk wasn't like every other victim of gun violence. The damage dealt by spitting on his grave pales in comparison to the long-term effects of letting someone like this be memorialized by the media and the President of the United States. Charlie Kirk was a disgusting, villainous, fascist pig who stood to bring this nation to its knees even if it was through mourning. He was an ableist, a sexist, a misogynist, a homophobe, and a white supremacist. His rhetoric made this tragedy possible. It directly contributed to his own death as well as the deaths of innocent people across America. He built a career off his ability to widen the political divide and radicalize people regardless of their political affiliation. How he died does nothing to change what he did or what he stood for. It does nothing to reprimand what he's done. We shouldn't be giving his name a platform at all, but I am forced to sit here and drag it through the dirt because only a handful of people seem willing to do so. I do not think anything justifies what happened to Charlie Kirk, but I refuse to treat him like a victim or recognize his death as a tragedy outside of the circumstances by which it happened. If you feel my position on this situation does something to diminish my opposition to his rhetoric or makes people on the left appear less dignified than people on the right, I don't think you've been paying attention. Charlie Kirk is truly undeserving of my empathy or anybody else's. He is uniquely awful. He has earned nothing less than to be remembered for what he was or erased from history altogether. If a German 80 years ago had said the things Charlie Kirk had said, they would have stood trial in Nuremberg. The media would have immediately villainized their platform and rhetoric across the world. Anyone who spoke kindly of them would have been made a pariah within their own community. Could you imagine if the day after they died, the government in Germany decided to mourn and commemorate them as a patriot? How much harm do you think that could have done in 10 years to societies and governments across the world? I am appalled to see content creators I once looked up to condemn innocent people before the vile, disgusting piece of shit they chose to use their platform to memorialize as a victim. They should be fucking embarrassed by their coverage of this situation. The truth is, if you don't have anything bad to say about Charlie Kirk, don't say anything at all. Compassion and empathy can cause significant harm when they are used to guilt people into ignoring the truth. If you choose to recognize his passing online, you need to also publicly acknowledge how his actions directly contributed towards his death and the deaths of innocent people across the nation. It is an insult to everyone who has been affected by Charlie Kirk's rhetoric to honor him with the respect and empathy that he denied so many other victims.